we have to keep moving forward. We have to keep pushing on these things. The worst thing that we can do is kind of sit and wait. Again, this is where the 100 users coming through the like our funnel or our process, a minimum of 100. Most of the time, that's good enough. Increase that number by a factor of 10. 1,000 would be even better. It's 10 times more valuable in my mind to have 1,000 people move through that. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Digital Ministry Podcast. I'm your host, Nick. We're going to do another solo episode today. So no guests. We've done this a couple of times, and thank you for the positive feedback that we've gotten from these episodes. I have been encouraged by it, mainly because we're hearing from listeners that some of these like how-to episodes, just kind of walking through some practical advice for digital ministry teams has been really helpful. And so as a reminder, we're on all of the channels, all of the podcast offerings. You can listen to the Digital Ministry Podcast wherever you find your podcasts, including now on Pandora, which is a new addition. But there's a couple of ways that you can provide feedback and make comments. I think one of the best is right in the YouTube channel. If you're watching this podcast on YouTube, there's a great comment ability there. But also you can always email your comments to info@mii.global and just put the Digital Ministry Podcast in your subject line. Today, I want to talk to you about something that we've been kind of wrestling with and walking through with the MII team. For those that don't know, MII Global offers digital ministry agency services to ministry teams around the world. So we have follow-up centers. We have digital marketers that are available for your ministry, either on a project basis, or sometimes ministries partner with MII to run all of their digital ministry campaigns, their ad campaigns in places like Google and Facebook and others. And one of the things that I get to do is kind of review the progress, review some of those projects with different MII teams around the world, which has been really fun for me, given my background in marketing. I just love that stuff. And I love kind of coming into a project with fresh eyes. So let me tell you about a conversation that we had recently. One of our teams is working in partnership with a ministry, and they're coming up against a challenge that is not uncommon for digital ministry teams. And this has to do with your marketing technology stack, your MarTech stack. Ideally, we would love to define like a marketing funnel or a user journey and see users systematically step through every step of that process. But that's not reality. I mean, we can do our best to define the customer journey or the seeker journey. And, but when you give multiple options to people, they tend to take it. To describe that a bit further, I always talk about if you look into Google Analytics and you see, oh, here's somebody that hit our ad, they came through to our landing page, but then they went to like terms and conditions, or they reviewed the privacy policy, and then they went back and maybe looked at some other videos, and then they went away, and then they come back weeks later and they might go to privacy policy again, which is kind of like a weird page. Like it has to exist on all of our websites, for GDPR and ICANN requirements. And then they'll reach out and connect. Like that's an unusual user journey, but it's not an impossible one. And so it's an example of people just kind of taking options that you give them. And sometimes in that process of skipping around our cookies, and I'm using that in like a very generic sense, but like our ability to track a user through the journey sometimes gets broken. We're dealing with a lot of different things. You're dealing with ad platforms. So Facebook, for example. Let's just focus on Facebook for the sake of this conversation. Facebook has a lot of tracking abilities. I can target an audience. I can see how users come in to maybe a direct messaging platform. Maybe it's Facebook Messenger. Our team in this example has Facebook Messenger connected to our response follow-up tool. But it's often the case that your analytics and your tracking doesn't always map through all of those different tools in your MarTech stack. That can cause problems because it presents uncertainty. So I just want to talk about that today. How do we deal with that when that happens? So I've got three suggestions for you. This might be a short episode, but I hope that it's kind of hard hitting, to the point, and valuable for our listeners that are in this space. So recommendation number one, step number one, when I'm looking at the performance of an ad campaign and how people are coming into a response tool and how our follow-up teams are engaging with those people and what processes they're using in order to guide people to either some kind of decision, some kind of deeper engagement, or our low funnel metrics like receiving Christian materials or getting involved in some kind of discipleship process. It's often the case that there's a lot of different things to look at. Rule number one for me here is I'm always trying to eliminate distractions. And a really simple way to eliminate distractions is focusing on what we do know and ignoring what we don't know. If we don't know it, it can't be a blocker. If we allow those things to block us, we're never going to make progress in our optimization of these campaigns and the optimization of the experience that we're offering to our users. So what I mean is it's often helpful to look at the ratios between different steps in the user journey. So what's a good ratio? A good ratio might be the number of website visitors that convert into a contact. So when people go from being an anonymous website user to raising their hand and saying, hey, this is my name, this is my email address, this is my WhatsApp number, whatever the case, identifier, whatever the case may be, there's usually a ratio there. A really good target that's held up for years is like 10%. Let's just use 10% as a baseline. So if 10% of our website visitors that click on an ad and hit our website, if 10% of those people convert into a direct message, that's a really good benchmark to use. Now, if I've got a lack of visibility between, the steps that they take once they hit the website, like between becoming a website visitor and becoming a direct message contact, I think that's okay. Like, ideally, I would love to see what the user journey looks like, what pages are they visiting, what content are they consuming. But if it's the case that in your ministry you don't have the tools set up appropriately, you're not accurately tracking that whole journey, then it's not available to you. And what I'm saying is that's okay. Trying to get really specific on those things can be a distraction. So eliminate that as a distraction for your team. We don't have it right now. We got to make decisions about what we're going to do over the next week or months with this campaign. Just avoid it and move on. Sometimes just knowing kind of your hard stops, the website visitor number, the direct message number, sometimes those are enough. There's certainly enough to give you some kind of educated guess to make a next decision. That next decision might be to adjust your ad copy, your ad content, the images or videos that you're using to try to lift that number. So if I'm trying to target 10% conversion rate between website visitor and direct message, and I'm at 7, I can still go make ad changes. I can change my audience targeting. I can make adjustments, really one at a time adjustments. Like if I'm going to change the video, just swap out the video and don't touch anything else. Don't change the video that you're using and the audience targeting at the same time. Because if I see a change in that number of 7%, say it goes up or down. Say it goes up to 10, or maybe it goes down to 5. If I change multiple variables, I'm not going to know which variable had the impact, because it's likely the combination of the two. And so I want to eliminate the distractions by making a single change at a time. And this, I think, is where constantly being in these campaigns, looking at this stuff regularly, optimizing it really on a daily basis is really important. Because if I make a change to my video, I can look at that ratio, that conversion rate to direct messages, and I can see a change almost immediately, especially in a lot of the markets or the regions that digital ministry teams are working in. There's enough volume coming through that ad campaign that I'm going to see something move when I change a single variable. So you don't have to wait a week or a month until your next reporting cycle. The digital marketers can see the impact of those changes on a day-by-day basis. Just another little side note here. I like to see a minimum of 100 people run through that process after I make a change before I make a decision about what happened. So this is just a way to kind of simplify things and eliminate distractions. Okay, so the second point that I want to make is avoiding false precision. So let me go the other way. There are all kinds of tools out there available to us. I can do heat maps on my website. I can do all kinds of AI analytics on my ad campaigns. I can look at Facebook Insights. I can look at Google Analytics. I can look at all of this stuff, and it becomes information overload. And really, if I get too deep into that, it's just an exercise in false precision. What is it that I'm really trying to understand? I don't need to know everything in order to make a decision about what's my next change on my ad campaign, or what adjustments do I need to make in my follow-up process. I don't need to know everything. I just need to know what are the key factors. And so avoiding false precision is the big idea here. I'm sure many of you listening have heard of the Pareto principle, and this is the idea that 80% of your results come from 20% of your activity. That 80-20 rule gets used and applied all the time. And that's what we're dealing with here. If you have the responsibility of, website content management, it might make sense for you to use a tool like Hotjar, where you can do heat maps and user engagement on your website or your individual landing pages. But for most managers and directors that are trying to direct a campaign towards certain results, that information is supplementary. It's usually not primary. Now, I'm not kind of demeaning or degrading that role on the team in any way. I think it's very important. But when it comes to quickly making decisions that keep the organization moving forward, a lot of times we need to separate the signals from the noise. So to keep using this same example, if I'm trying to increase the conversion rate from website visitors to direct messages, I'm making a change to a single variable at a time. And once I see that conversion rate move up or down based on the change that I've made, that's enough. That's enough for me to make a decision and move forward. All of the other stuff can just be noise in that instance. Now, if I'm making a change and I don't get any movement, then I've changed the wrong variable. So go find another one. Maybe it's not the video that you're using. Maybe it's the audience targeting. So that might need to be adjusted in order to get a change. And here's another little idea, is that a downward change or a negative change is still valuable. Failure is incredibly valuable to our teams in this process, because I can still learn something from that failure. Just because it doesn't make the move that I want, it doesn't move in the positive direction, doesn't mean that it was a bad move. It means that we learned something. The only time we fail is when we stop. And so that brings me to my third point. We have to keep moving forward. we have to keep pushing on these things. The worst thing that we can do is kind of sit and wait. Again, this is where the 100 users coming through the like our funnel or our process, a minimum of 100. Most of the time, that's good enough. Increase that number by a factor of 10. 1,000 would be even better. It's 10 times more valuable in my mind to have 1,000 people move through that. But if for some reason, budget limitations or some other reason, I'm not getting 1,000, make a change to a variable, eliminate your distractions, see what changes are made, make a decision about what you do next, avoid false precision, and just keep moving forward. Oftentimes, that forward movement is going to keep the morale on your team higher. It's going to let people know that we're working, there's effort being made to this. And the faster that we can cycle that, the faster we're going to achieve the results that we actually want. And so there are so many, complexities to this work. The digital ministry teams that are doing this kind of work day in and day out, there's so much information that we can be looking at, we can get distracted by. But if we eliminate those distractions, we avoid false precision, and we keep moving forward, this is a recipe for success that I've used for years. And I find that performance increases more quickly, by using these steps. And we can drive to better results for our team, for our ministry stakeholders, and those that are putting money and time and effort and resource behind these campaigns in order to have a positive impact on the lives of the people that we're reaching. So I would love to hear in the comments what challenges you guys are facing. What are you seeing? Does this make sense? Do you disagree? One of the great things about this podcast medium is the dialogue that happens after these episodes get released. What I would love to see is the comment section where people are sharing their experiences, and this becomes a learning opportunity among the listeners to this podcast. And by the way, if this is episode 22, one of the things that Nils and Jay Cranda and I have talked about in the past is that I think 90% of podcasts never make it past episode 10. And so to see episode 22 being released, we've got over 1,000 people have downloaded these podcasts and have listened to them. We've got hundreds of people that listen to every single episode. It's been really encouraging for us at the MII team to see how well received this conversation has been. But it's an opportunity for you to participate in it as well. So I guess my request being made here is feel free to comment, feel free to provide feedback. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me that you found better success with a different method. I would love to learn from you. So hopefully this can be not only an encouraging episode for you that's helpful for your team, share it with your team. One of the last episodes that we put out where it was the same kind of formats, like here's a step-by-step. We've heard from multiple people that they've shared that out with their teams. They've had good discussions about it. That's the whole point of this stuff. So hopefully you're finding value in these conversations, but participate in the conversation. I'd love to hear from you as well. So that's it for today. Just to recap, eliminate distractions, avoid false precision, keep moving forward. Oftentimes our limitations, I'll leave you with this final thought. Limitations of budget, limitations of our tool set, that's not always a problem. Limitations are constraints, and great art, great progress is made inside of tight constraints. It's often when we can't have everything that we want that we get really creative and we figure out how to break through those barriers. So if you're facing those kinds of limiting challenges within your team, be encouraged. That's where greatness comes from. With limited tools, we can do great things, often because our distractions are eliminated. We don't have an overload of information, and we have to move forward. So we just keep moving with what we have. And then what my hope is for you is that with that future success that you're finding from these campaigns, that gives you an ability to go out and find more resource, find more budget, add to your tool set, but you're going to make those additions with the knowledge and understanding of what gaps specifically you need to fill. So it's not just buying, all of the technology, all of the analytic tools that are available just because they're out there. That's going to lead you to a really specific and directed spend of your marketing technology budget and your ad budget in order to get future success. So thanks for being loyal listeners. Thanks for listening to this today. I hope that it's been helpful. And again, would love to hear your comments and feedback.